the beauty about our niche is going to the cost is one of the cap rates have been higher, usually about 1.5, 2 point higher in a comparable asset to
Hmm.
like multifamily is because of the expense ratio. Usually,
All right, welcome back to the Richer Geek podcast. I'm happy to introduce Jonathan Tuttle. How you doing, Jonathan?
very good. Thanks for having me on.
It's a blast. I'm really looking forward to digging in and learning about all the truths and myths about mobile home parks. And yeah, I think there's a lot. I think so many people say, and they know that mobile home parks are a very good resource to invest in, but I think they're a little bit scared of it. But before we dig into that, tell me a little bit about yourself and where you're from and how did you get started in real estate?
Sure. Great questions. Well, I was fortunate enough. My dad was a real estate guy. So growing up, he had three real estate brokerage offices. He developed about 82 or 83 custom homes, single family homes. And then later on, in around 2005, he got his first park. And that's when I
Hmm.
knew I was going to get into real estate. Just growing up with it, being a little kid. But around 2005, he got his first park. And exactly what you kind of said, this I was like, "What are you buying? A mobile home park? What is this?"
Yeah.
and that was the reaction. Even when I tell my friends, I'm like, after seeing the what it was doing, because that was right before the downturn, and over the next 5 years, we had that first park for about 7 years. We had a great offer. We had to take it and sell it, but it just blew my mind that how resilient that industry, our industry, is during downturns, which we're starting to see again this year. Which so that's kind of like the first exposure to it. Just grew up doing sales jobs. Got into real estate around 2010. Brokerage side, brokered until around a couple years ago, and now I have a fund and I actually have an info product in the space, a mobile home park space.
Oh, what? Tell me a little bit about that. I mean, that's kind of an interesting part. Now, did your first outside of your father, was it a mobile home park? Was that the first asset that you actually purchased on your own?
Yeah, yep, exactly. Then we had two more.
Mm.
We got 2011 and 13 was the next two parks. So, yeah,
Mm.
I just like the resilience of it and like, all the economic. I got really comfortable with it because it was just so resilient. And the beauty about what kind of what you alluded to,
Mhm.
the fact that not everyone knows about it or they kind of have a stigma, it means it's getting a lot more harder now because people are diving full into it. But at that time, like 7, 10 years ago, it still had the stigma. And so it
Right.
was a lot easier to get into it. And like they say, the riches are in the niches. So
Yeah.
I like to go more of a blue ocean than compete with everyone. So
Well,
that was
that's right. Yeah. There's mobile home buying and flipping is not on HGTV yet. So that's when you know that you're still okay and you can still make some money because
exactly.
every young kid out there is not buying it yet, and getting in trouble. Um, but let's you keep talking about resiliencies, and that's very very important in today's market. And believe me, I know. Yeah, I've really changed just in my aspect in the hotel business on what to buy, and I've just completely changed my criteria and even different avenues. So it's interesting to me that you're saying that the mobile home parks have been resilient, and uh, you've been through it in 2008 with your fathers, and then you're able to buy towards the end of it in 11 and 13. So tell me about the resiliency and what you found. Did it dip at all, or what's your reaction towards that?
I mean, it's such an incredible asset. They just had data that just came out about a week ago from Green Street Data, which aggregates all institutional data from all different commercial, different asset classes. And the only two that have actually gone up in value this year were mobile home parks and industrial. Industrial because of e-commerce, all the stores are closing down. That makes
Mm-hmm.
sense. But you could open industrial as long as the zoning stipulations. You could open them. The cities will allow them. They're far away spaces. However, with manufacturing mobile home parks or land lease committees, whatever you want to call it,
Mm-hmm.
is it's almost impossible to get the new zoning approval. So that's what keeps that's one of the factor to keep the supply and demand. You have
Mhm.
60 million Americans that need affordable housing, about 12 million mobile homes, or about 44,000 parks, and you can't develop. It's almost impossible, and or it's usually a conversion, like an RV conversion. So it's kind of
Mhm.
the same demographic anyway. And or if you're looking from an investor standpoint, you're developing a subdivision. If you're developing a subdivision, you might as well do multifamily, hotel,
Mhm.
or even a residential subdivision at that point, because you're not going to get your return for 3 or 4 years. We rather buy a mobile home park that's cash flowing right away, and you're not bringing home by home by home and marketing it like that. So that's the data really that backed it up. Also, Wall Street Journal had an article, I think it was about February of this year, well, 2020. I don't know when this actually aired, but and they alluded to the fact that since the last housing crash, mobile manufactured housing has been the most resilient, been just killing the market basically, and it basically comes down to supply and demand. And there's different types of parks. So like you mentioned the stigma, but there's also like senior parks. They do really well. One of our
Mhm.
parks is senior parks, and that's just like a retirement community. It's not, you have 70% of America, 65, 70% of America lives on Social Security and they have low savings. The other 30% can afford, assisted living, the luxury resorts, but who serves that 70%? And or if they're competing, if they're looking at a local apartment, like a garden community style apartment complex, is usually half the price than that. Plus, if you're getting older, you don't want to walk up and down the stairs. You want to be able to park your car right next to your house. You walk right into your house. You have a sense of community. You don't have neighbors knocking on your door above and below you, yelling, kids screaming, any of that. So that's some of the benefits you see in the manufacturer from the tenant side.
Mhm.
From the investor side, it just has this resilience because the lot rents are one third the price of a house in the same town and one half the price of an apartment. So the cost for it serves that need for the affordable housing.
Mhm.
So that's why it does so well.
And it's amazing to me about all the whining and with the city governments and the
Yep.
counties, you know it- affordable housing, we need more affordable housing, but you can't do mobile home parks.
Right. It's crazy.
And there's that stigma again, right?
Yep.
Because it's going to put a blight on the neighborhood. Oh, it's going to, even though it can be, I've seen some very nice luxurious,
Hmm.
and they kind of mix in some RVs with the mobile homes and things like that. There's some really nice ones, whole communities with pools and fitness centers, and I mean, just the whole thing. Um, how does it different? Are the ones that you concentrate on? Uh, do the I don't know if you call them tenants or if you call them homeowners. Uh, are they? Do you own the manufactured house, or is it a mixture, or are they renting just the pad? How does that work with? Do you rent out the mobile home itself? You know, or do they own it?
Yeah, no, so there's a couple ways, there's a couple different business models. Ideally, what you want is it's like a land lease, where you basically own the land and you own as few as homes as possible. You're not a landlord, you're not
Hmm.
you want to keep that on them. So basically,
Hmm.
they own the house. Plus, I didn't mention this earlier, but like the taxation, for example, in Illinois, Illinois and California are two of the highest, but Illinois specifically for real estate taxes is astronomical for what
Hmm.
you get. Illinois, California, obviously also the two broke states.
Yep.
We are so behind that like you have $150,000 house and you have like a $4 or $5,000 tax bill. It's insane, if not higher. So if you have a mobile home, you can have the same school, same fire, live across the street in the mobile home park with your $15,000 mobile home, whatever it's worth. Just say
Yeah.
that's a good range, and then you're saving 300, 400, 500 bucks a month on taxes. So that's kind of like your equity. So for the tenant side, so it's really beneficial for them to own it because they're saving all this money in the taxation. So and the average tenant says 14, 15 years, and that you're basically getting the same amount of equity. You don't have all the repairs. The park owner maintains the grounds besides their yard. So you have all those advantage. And then so ideally, and then also for like Fannie and Freddie for financing, they've really looked into our space and really been hugely pushing the last like 5 years. 10 years ago, you couldn't really get Fannie and Freddie. People are familiar, but Fannie and Freddie is the
Hmm.
government financing. It's the best terms, non-recourse, 10, 12 years, the lowest rates. It's actually lower than multifamily right now. They really like our space, because there's a kind of a duty to serve to kind of help people. They have a special name for it, but they have to allocate 35 or 37% towards affordable housing.
Hmm.
And who's the biggest recipient of it? Mobile home parks, obviously. So we're
Uh,
getting these terms that are like 2.7, 3% rates, which is like
mm,
unheard of, which is also bringing down the cap rates because the demand, everyone wants to get into it. You can't develop new ones. And then you could also get the greatest financing out there. So it's like this huge mix of which is causing this explosion in our industry. You can see in Blackstone just bought 550 million additionally about a month ago in mobile home parks in Florida. You have Apollo Group buying billions over the next couple of
mhm,
years, the sovereign wealth fund. So all the big players are getting into the space because they see the value of it. Besides, like Warren Buffett and Sam
mm,
Zell have been into it for the last 20 years. But yeah, ideally, going back to your question, is ideally you want to have them own it, and
mhm,
then you want the less liability. And then
mhm,
the newer parks, the newer home, they're actually about 80,000 for a single, or
mhm,
double wide at 80. Then some of the homes go up to like 120,
mhm.
140 for like the really, really nice ones. You couldn't tell if you were in like a luxury house or like a luxury, you're in Chicago, Miami,
Mhm.
like apartment. It's like everything top notch, and but they're over 100 grand, so it's not really affordable housing at that point.
Wow. Now, what kind of, as an owner and investor, what kind of, you hit on a little bit, what kind of cost do you have? Because most of my listeners know about multifamily and the expenses involved with
Mm-hmm.
owning an apartment. It seems like, what do you have? Because it's almost like a triple net. It's like a land
Yep.
lease, right?
Yeah, you're
Um,
very spot on with that. It's the beauty about our niche is going to the cost is one of the for the cap rates have been higher, usually about 1.5, 2 point higher in a comparable asset to
mhm,
like multifamily is because of the expense ratio. Usually on a non-institutional product, like a non like let's say under 5 million or under like 200
mhm,
units, you're probably about 35-40% expense ratio. And
mm.
then the more institutional with the bigger management, 42 to 45. When you're looking at apartments, probably 55-60 for the
Yeah,
same
yeah,
comparable. And here's the
absolutely.
beauty about it too. Most people don't know this and they're kind of mind blown by this. So multifamily, it's a great asset because you get the 27.5 year
Yeah,
depreciation schedule. Traditional commercial real estate is 39.
yep.
Land improvements. Well, the land, the streets, and actually every house, especially in the Midwest, that's what we focus on. The cement pads, that's considered land improvement. So you could write off 65 to 75% at a 15 years. People are
Oh,
mind blown by this. And then and it goes back to the other question, if we do own the houses and it's not tenant,
wow.
then it's 27.5 like multifamily. So you could write off when you acquire it. It's one of the most advantageous tax structure. I think it is the
Mm.
most advantageous for real estate.
And then you could do probably cost segregation,
Yep, exactly. Yep.
bring it down into
Engineering,
five
engineering it.
years. Yeah.
Yep. And bonus
Wow.
depreciation while that's still around. We'll see how that
Yep.
changes by the time this comes out. Hopefully they'll keep that.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, we'll see.
Yeah, I know.
Well,
Another story.
yeah, that's another story we won't get into. Um, well, wonderful. So you're doing this and you're bringing on investors under the name Midwest Park Capital. Tell me a little bit about your, is it a syndication? Is it a fund? What is it?
Yep, it's a fund. It's a real estate fund. We're doing 10 million raise. By the time you see us, we might be fully subscribed.
Hmm.
We got some family office meetings coming up in the next
Good.
year of the holiday. It was just a week after election, so we had a lot of people kind of waiting to see what was going to happen with the whole election. So now we're circling back, and now we're getting some of that capital coming in. But yeah, we're doing $10 million raise. We're doing 70-30 split, so it's really advantageous to the investors. 8 to 10 year hold. Obviously, like I
Hmm.
said, we literally built an all-star team. So we're focusing on the Midwest because it has a higher cap rate,
Yep.
and that's where we're from. On top of that, it's not as institutionally owned. So right now in our industry, we're seeing it's the least consolidated of all big commercial real estate. Even though the big players are coming in, but that's going to change over the next 4 or 5 years. So the ideal is like accumulate like 2 or 3 funds, like 3 funds where we're looking at, and then sell it to an institutional player because that's what they like to buy. They don't like to buy, like I mentioned, Blackstone buy 550 million. They don't want to buy a one-off $5 million park.
Yeah.
It's not worth it when they have billions of dollars sitting in the bank.
Yep. More
So yeah,
overhead, more management.
exactly. Scale of economics doesn't even make
Yep.
sense to them. So yeah, and we built an all-star team, everything from the best fund administration's software. It's got 100, the software we use has 100 billion under management,
Mm.
under current management. The biggest property manager in our space with 33 years experience and 35,000 lots. They even manage Apollo's properties. and then a really seasoned park CPA. So we have a CPA that knows all these little tax advantages. So, and then everything's really transparent with Midwest Park Capital. We have
Mm-hmm.
fully online, transparent, like portal and
Mm-hmm.
quarterly calls, and we just really want to provide this often, confusing, unique niche, a way for people to be passive. We do all the work. You get all the advantages of it.
And what is the? I understand it's passive. Kind of what's the return? What's the yield? What's your if you have a preferred rate? You
Yeah.
know, what
Oh, yeah.
kind? How do you set
Yeah.
it up? Yeah.
Yeah, I forgot to mention that. Sorry. A
That's
prep, target 15 IR. That's comfortable. We know the cap rates have been compressed. There's a 3-point spread. You know, with the 10-year treasury has come down to like, below one. Obviously it's crazy right now, but a 3-year spread, if we get institutional financing in the low threes, we know even at a 6 cap, we're hitting the pref, we're hitting the, cash on cash and teens from day one. Um, but we're seeing like these, two things we're seeing. We're seeing a lot of these, because most of these people, like you mentioned, our mom and pops have had these for a long time. And it's institutional owners are coming in the space. So they're getting more crazy offers thrown at them. Who knows under due diligence if they'll go through or not, but they have their expectations set higher, and the cap rates have gotten really compressed compared to what it used to be. That's why we like the Midwest, because we have an extra 1 or 2 points. But we're seeing cap rates like a couple of years ago, 10 cap was like the commonplace. Like, oh, you got a mobile home park, it's 10 cap, you're getting cash on cash, you're getting 20% plus returns. It was crazy. Now, okay, this is the only, one of the few real estates that's exceedingly well, and everyone, you can't develop new ones, and there's huge demand for it. Okay, well, let's do a 6 cap. And we're seeing 5s and 4s in like the coastal cities, which, yeah, if you're, Blackstone, that makes sense, but not
yeah.
for us.
Yeah,
So
yeah,
a
that
lot of
makes
that.
sense because they're just looking at they don't want the 10 the 10 cap. They don't want the 10 return. It's
Right.
just it's a bond for them.
Yep.
They're just making their institutional investors just a percentage, a very small percentage. Um, yeah, it's very interesting. Now, I was looking on your site, your bio. Um, have you done this in the past about flipping them? I mean, are you? What is? I mean, what is that all about?
So yeah, so we, because our fund is for accredited investors, which in like general terms basically means you have to make 200 plus a year, have a million liquid, not including your house.
Yeah.
So I want to have a solution for the everyday person to get involved in the space. And like you mentioned
Uh,
earlier with the TV shows, yeah, there's nobody else. That's one of our value props. There's everyone else is telling you to flip a house, but
mm-hmm.
if you go to a conference and there's 400 people in the conference room in the same town, going over the same 10 properties, do you think you're gonna get a nice return?
Mm-hmm.
And on top of that, you have to get a loan from the bank. You have to have good credit. You need to, 20% down right now with Chase. I think right now with the new laws, or with the new regulations, I should say. This is an avenue for people, everyday person, to help affordable housing, because if these houses don't get remodeled or maintained, they get torn down or put in for new ones, or like the new $80,000. So you can solve the affordable housing for everyday Americans to have a 10, 15, $20,000 house. Or if you're in a coastal city, you can make 80, 100,000 a flip over there, because the houses go for hundreds of thousands. Or even what you mentioned, I forgot to mention, some of the like Paradise Cove in Malibu, it's a mobile home park where the houses are like $3 to $6 million. Matthew McConaughey lives there. Pamela Anderson used to live there, but it's right on the beach. And then right next door, you have 30, $40 million houses. And so they get the same view of the same beach without the tax bill. So neighbors hate it. The neighbors like, oh,
Does,
but it's low key, like hang out. And there's also one in, which is funny, on the other side of the coast in Hamptons, there's another mobile home park. It's called Billionaires Row. And there's like 3 or 4 billionaires that live in there, and they get away from the Hamptons. And it's like you know, these classic getaway houses for the billionaires in Wall Street. So it's kind of funny, but going back to what you said, so it's getting like the people who want to get away, they have those, but then every American, it's a great way to like either find something and flip the contract, or remodel and flip. Uh, you know, so we just show them step by step, and we bring in a
mhm,
lot of the people that nobody really would have access to, because it's kind of like a good old boys or old school, very, like you said, there's not a lot of information about it. So
mhm,
we want to provide affordable way to help people make an extra income, especially now with COVID, and especially now people losing jobs. This serves affordable housing. You already have a huge demand once you get a home, and you can, and a typical flip, and a small flip, you're making 4 to 6 thousand, or if it's a decent size, 10 to 15 thousand a flip. So if you do one a month or a few a year, you're in a good shape, and it doesn't take a lot of work, because it's not like a house. So if you're going to tear down, you can't tear down like all the like the outside. It's like a shoebox. Like you can't even touch
Right.
the outside really, besides painting and putting some shutters on it and putting a deck if you want to.
Yeah.
So you can't be like, oh, I want to put new windows, expand the windows, because if you oversize the windows, HUD doesn't allow that. It could the frame it could collapse.
Yeah. Yeah.
So you're basically
Compromise.
you're putting in carpet, paint, some new like some the most minor basic thing, and then you use social media and Facebook Marketplace and Craigslist to market it, and it's basically arbitrage,
Mm.
and you control the market.
Yeah. And, it's not like you're putting granite and,
Right, exactly. And those don't
you
even do
know,
well unless you're in like a market that needs that. But they actually, the less you do, as long as it's new and it's clean, that's what they want. They just want a clean, affordable house.
yep.
They're not looking for a luxury apartment unless that's that niche. There's a market for that too, but the everyday American, you could put a couple grand, and that's what makes the beauty about it. They
Hmm.
have a nice, clean, safe place to live. They're going to be happy because they're saving all that money in rent, they're saving all that money in
Yep.
taxes, and they get to go to the same school, same fire, and they have their own yard. And at the same time, you're making potentially a six-figure income, and we've done it many times in our parks. So I've using some of the ones from our parks as examples in the course. Like, here's what we did, here's how to do it, here's all the resources. It's online. It's called Mobile
Hmm.
Home Wealth Academy.
There you go. And it's just fascinating. And I know that our listenership is just going to eat this up when it comes on. I appreciate you being on today. Now, how can people reach you? Because I
Oh,
know that they're going to want to learn more.
I appreciate that. Thank you for having me on. It was fun and entertaining. So the fund, if you're a credit investor, if you want to just get some general information, same
Hmm.
as the name, Midwest Park Capital, midwestparkcapital.com. And that's
Hmm.
kind of gives you the general, overview. And then the other website, if you want to see the PPM, which is a private placement, the actual fund documents and all that,
Hmm.
that's midwestparkcapitalfund.com, or call us at 833 MHP Fund. I don't know how I got that. and then, and then for the Mobile Home Wealth Academy, for anybody else that just wants to, I have I have two funnels built, but I'm for the basic, easy to remember Mobile Home Wealth Academy. There's like a little drop your email in there, and that gives you first access to that. And that's coming out. I don't know when this comes out, but this will be coming out in the next month. So the mid-December, we're making sure we have more content that just blows people's out of the water and make sure that they
Yeah.
succeed. We even have a 1-year guarantee on it, money back,
No.
and we'll give you $1,000 back if it doesn't work. That's how much we
Oh,
believe in it. So Midwest, that's the Mobile Home Wealth
oh,
Academy.com.
sounds fantastic. Well, thank you, sir. I appreciate it. Good luck to you. And I am sure the listeners are going to just eat this up. Take care, everybody. And thank you for listening to another episode of the Richer Geek Podcast.